1995's Star Wars Dark Forces has been beautifully remastered by Night Dive Studios. Converting the entire game to their own engine, they've done one hell of a job bringing this boomer shooter Star Wars title to modern audiences. That's about where my praise ends because I just don't think the game itself always holds up the best, but let's get deep into the good and the bad with Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered. Priced at $30, I was skeptical of this remaster when I first saw it. After playing through the game's campaign though, it makes sense as Night Dive Studios done a ton of work rebuilding this game in their own engine. Playing on a Series X, it looked crisp, clean, and ran beautifully. Cutscenes and gameplay alike are a massive improvement over the original 1995 release, and the audio sounds great. You are Kyle Katarn, a former Imperial officer who now does work for hire with the Rebel Alliance. Set during the original trilogy, you'll start the game by finding the Death Star plans and go all around various I-know-that-place places throughout Star Wars lore. To do this, you'll have your trusty modified Briar pistol and an assortment of other weaponry as you blast and bomb your way through over 10 labyrinthian levels. The game featured voiced cutscenes tied to lightly animated visuals. These have their original charm despite the graphical upgrades and were my favorite part of the game. My other favorite part was the intact cheat system from the original release. After playing through once on normal difficulty, these let me mess around in any level I wanted with God mode, unlimited weapons, and more. I really can't say enough about the great work Night Dive did creating this port, and enough bad things about how the game actually holds up. Star Wars Dark Forces is a game of its time. Back in '95, it took up the Doom and Wolfenstein style of fast first-person shooter and gave it a cool-as-shit Star Wars setting. It was awesome seeing all these familiar characters from previous decades in a video game that was all about blowing the hell out of people. By modern-day sensibilities, this is not one to dive into if you don't have those nostalgic feelings. Gameplay-wise, it is very fast-paced with a lot of height-based aim assist. It doesn't feel bad, they've smoothed out the stick acceleration, it's just not deep. You shoot, you get shot at a lot, with very little else to do. You can't really avoid being hit and end up having to hunt for health and shield items on the ground. I'd consider it barely passable for like 15 or 20 years ago, let alone something to pay $30 on today. My biggest issue with the game is the awful level layouts. I was able to figure out where to go every time. Eventually, it just was rarely fun to do it. The game is far too long to hold up with its simplistic gameplay system for its intended runtime. Though, if you do know where to go in a level, you can clear most of them in 5 or 10 minutes. To keep that from happening, they made them into mazes with seemingly random switches to find or paths to stumble across. For those who know the game and are looking for a bit of nostalgic fun, I do think the $30 will be a little off-putting, but Night Dive Studios put in the work so I understand the price. I'm sure the license is not cheap to get from Disney, but it is still a pretty big ask when the game itself doesn't hold up, kinda similarly to the recent Jurassic Park one. They put in some good work there to get them all in one package, but the games aren't actually any good. Wrapping things up, Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered is a remaster done well. Its main issue is that the game it is remastering just isn't that fun anymore. But if you have the itch to dive back in, and the $30 price isn't too much, then I think it's well worth it. If you don't have those feelings though, it's a tough one to recommend.